Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, your trusted source for clear, timely updates on the evolving status of the Iraqi dinar. In today's breakdown, we're examining the most pressing question that's been circulating throughout the dinar investment community. How much money will you actually receive once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar takes place? As anticipation builds and speculation continues to grow, it's crucial to separate hype from realistic expectations. By the end of this segment, you'll have a better grasp of how this possible financial shift could affect your bottom line and what steps to take to prepare. Let's start at the core. What does a revaluation, or RV, mean for a currency like the IQD? Simply put, it's when a nation officially modifies the exchange rate of its currency relative to others, such as the US dollar. For Iraq, this potential revaluation could mark a dramatic shift. Currently, one IQD is valued at just a small fraction of a US cent. But what if that figure climbs? Investors are contemplating potential outcomes where one IQD could jump to $0, 10 cents, $0, 50 cents, or even $1, 0 cents. While these numbers might sound aspirational, even a modest revaluation could create significant returns for those holding large quantities of dinar. However, it's important to remain grounded. While some rumors suggest values as high as $3, 0 cents to $5, 0 cents per IQD, these projections often ignore economic and fiscal limitations. More conservative estimates fall in the range of $0, 10 cents to $1, 50 cents, depending on Iraq's chosen strategy and rollout timeline. Even if the rate reaches $0, 50 cents, an individual holding 1 million IQD could potentially see a pre-tax windfall of $500,000, 0 cents. But those numbers don't represent the final take-home amount. Fees, tax obligations, and possible tiered payout structures could all impact your total exchange value. For instance, in the U.S., any gains realized through currency exchange may be considered capital gains, which means the IRS will take a portion based on your holding period and tax bracket. Planning ahead with a certified tax professional can help you reduce or defer tax liability when the time comes. Iraq's central bank has recently become more vocal with increased public attention on their efforts toward inflation management, currency reform, and stabilization. Among these reforms is the long-discussed Deletion of Zeros initiative, aimed at simplifying large transactions and building international confidence. If revaluation is launched in tandem with this reform, a 25,000 IQD note could potentially equate to thousands of US dollars post-exchange. Still, nothing is instant. The central bank continues to assess its strategy carefully to avoid sudden shocks to the economy. Let's talk real-world scenarios. Say the RV goes live and you're holding 1 million IQD at a $0, 10 cents rate. That nets $100,000, 0 cents. If the rate is $0, 50 cents. It jumps to $500,000, 0 cents. And if we see a full $1, 0 cents valuation, that turns into a $1 million, 0 cents payday. Again, these are gross figures and don't account for taxes or deductions. If capital gains apply, and depending on your filing status, as much as 15% to 37% could be owed to federal authorities, plus possible state-level taxes. As for where and how to exchange, several options exist, from brick-and-mortar banks and licensed currency dealers to online platforms. However, exchange rates and fees can vary drastically. Some institutions may offer premium rates for high-volume exchanges or loyal customers, while others may introduce higher fees. Your best move is to research and compare before committing. Watch for red flags. Scammers thrive in moments of financial excitement. Never mail in your currency without verified instructions and documentation. Stick with licensed, insured, and regulated institutions. What's fueling this major shift in Iraq's financial posture? The answer lies in diversification. While oil still dominates, Iraq is actively branching into agriculture, tourism, and the global carbon market. The government has begun issuing carbon bonds to attract foreign investment. This economic expansion offers long-term stability and reduces reliance on a single revenue stream. The stronger the economy, the more favorable the currency becomes on global markets. There's also a key political piece: the long-stalled oil and gas legislation, designed to resolve disputes between Baghdad and the Kurdistan regional government, has regained momentum. If passed, it could unlock billions in regional investments. The Iraqi Economic Council has already confirmed that over 30 countries have expressed serious interest in Iraq's growth. More global confidence could accelerate RV plans, especially if supported by meaningful reforms and domestic unity. Another significant update came directly from Iraq's financial leadership. The central bank has declared that no outstanding balances or financial restrictions remain between Iraq and the United States. This statement implies that Iraq is financially clean and free to engage globally on its own terms. It also moves the country closer to qualifying for IMF Article 8 status, which would allow unrestricted use of the dinar in international transactions, something that could drastically boost global demand and value. Building off Iraqi's clearing of international financial hurdles, many analysts are now watching for signs that the country could officially accept IMF Article 8. This transition is crucial. It would legally permit the Iraqi dinar to be used more freely in international trade, making it far more attractive to banks and investors worldwide. Once that status is confirmed, the dinar could be listed on forex platforms and trading desks alongside major currencies like the dollar, euro, and pound. This increased visibility alone might push up demand and naturally lift the rate. Another critical factor lies in how the revaluation could be structured. Experts believe that Iraq might implement a staggered rollout, a tiered system where early exchangers receive different rates than those who wait. There might even be different categories of access depending on the volume held, relationship with banks, or verification level. While this is still speculative, history from other currency transitions suggests it's possible. If that's the case, planning ahead, both logistically and strategically, will be vital. Some currency holders are already preparing for scenarios where contract rates may be available only through specific redemption centers or bank programs. These institutions may require pre-scheduling, identification verification, and potentially a non-disclosure agreement, especially if higher private rates are involved. Make sure your documentation is in order: receipts, certificates of authenticity, government-issued ID, so you're ready to act quickly and confidently when official channels open. It's also important to consider liquidity at the time of exchange. Even if a revaluation occurs, local banks might face short-term cash constraints. This could mean delays in payouts or limits on how much can be redeemed in a single transaction. You might be offered wire transfers, staggered disbursements, or investment options instead of full cash delivery. Discussing these scenarios with your financial advisor now could save you headaches when the window opens. On the topic of taxes, don't underestimate what's owed. If your exchange results in a significant gain, say $500,000, 0 cents, or $1 million, 0 cents, you could easily be pushed into the highest federal tax bracket. Depending on how long you've held your dinar, it may be considered a short-term or long-term capital gain, each with different consequences. Some are even exploring setting up trusts or limited liability companies to manage their funds in a more structured and tax-efficient way. Speak to a licensed tax professional before the happens, not after. What about Vietnam's currency? The Vietnamese dong VND is also being watched, though its path is very different from Iraq's. While speculation exists around a VND adjustment, there has been no official confirmation. Still, many investors are holding both currencies as a dual strategy. If the dong does revalue, even modestly, its sheer quantity in circulation could still yield sizable returns, particularly for those who bought large amounts when rates were low. Back to Iraq. It's vital to monitor the actions of key players. Former President Trump previously spoke in favor of Iraq regaining control of its own economy, and some believe recent U.S. Treasury meetings behind closed doors have quietly supported Iraq's progress. While these meetings aren't publicized, leaks and signals from DC insiders suggest a growing alignment between U.S. policy and Iraq's financial independence. There's also the human side of this moment. Thousands of people, many who've waited for over a decade, are on the edge of realizing the outcome of their patience. From military veterans who brought dinar home from deployment to small investors who saw the potential early on, this RV isn't just about currency, it's about hope, endurance, and possibility. But it only pays off if you're prepared and informed. If Iraq proceeds with an RV at even $0.20 per dinar, and you hold 5 million IQD, you're looking at $1 million 0 cents gross. But the net? That depends on taxes, fees, timing, and exchange method. It's not about getting rich overnight. It's about how much you get to keep, and keeping it requires smart decisions, grounded advice, and a healthy amount of caution. To wrap up, Iraq's financial landscape is evolving quickly. A confirmed revaluation is no longer a fantasy. It's being mapped out through policy, reform, and economic structure. But like any financial milestone, success will depend on knowledge and preparation. Stay alert, verify information, and always choose legitimate channels when it's time to exchange. Thanks for tuning in to Iraqi Dinar News. If you found this update helpful, be sure to subscribe and share it with others in the dinar community. The opportunity may be close, but how ready you are will make all the difference.